The founding and discovery of Australia is such an important time in British history. Today we're going to go back in time to the year 1785 to find out more about this historical time through the eyes of Thomas Akers. Thomas Akers was in the shoemaker trade. At the age of 27, he noticed that his shoemaking occupation did not provide the steady income that he needed. In the year 1785, Thomas Akers was arrested for attempted robbery of 10 shillings. He later was sentenced to death by hanging.
I sentence you to death by hanging.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Don't worry, his story doesn't end here. We still have a lot more to talk about.
Instead of death by hanging, I have sentenced you to serve as a convict in Australia, in New South Wales.
In the year 1788, Thomas Akers started his journey to Australia on the first fleet, the Charlotte. The living conditions on these ships were not the best, with the food mostly consisting of boiled rice and, if they were lucky, some vegetables like potatoes and carrots. The convicts aboard the Charlotte had cramped sleeping arrangements. Each convict would have a bunk bed or a hammock, a mesh sack for warmth, and some means of feathers and hay for comfort. The convicts had to endure through these hard conditions for 10 months. Imagine the hot nights, sailing through the Mediterranean, thirsty and terribly uncomfortable, and imagine how boring it would have been. They had to make their own means of entertainment, like cards, dancing and singing. None of this Xbox, iPhone and Wi-Fi stuff. They had to make their own entertainment. Could you last one day, let alone a week, without your phone? Yeah, I thought so. Well, imagine having no entertainment whatsoever for 10 months. On the 18th of January 1788, the first fleet arrived in Botany Bay. The convicts, including Thomas Akers, were severely parched and malnourished due to the lack of supplies on the ship. Thomas Akers was a convict slave upon his arrival in Australia. Throughout his 7 years in Australia as a slave, Thomas Akers did not serve one flogging, leg iron, or any sort of punishments, although he would have no doubt witnessed the Finally, Thomas Akers had his freedom. In 1794, Thomas was granted his first piece of land by the government. He then became a farmer on his land that was given to him. When Thomas became a free settler, he found a wife named Anne Guy, who he married. He had 2 children, Mary Ann and Sophia. Sadly, after all that hard work, Thomas Akers died on 1798. He was speared by Aboriginals on his own land.
Wait, hold up. He was speared?
Yeah, speared. Keep up. Well, you can understand where they were coming from.
Yeah, I agree. Aboriginals were treated badly.
I mean, Aboriginals were discriminated, executed, and even made into slaves. And not to mention, their native land was taken. To them, Thomas Akers would have been a threat and an enemy to them.
Wow, what a life Thomas Akers had. Thomas Akers lived an amazing life. He went through so much and died a very wealthy man. Today, Thomas Akers is known for his great part in the agricultural development of Australia. Many Indigenous Australians and English settlers have gone through the same situation, and yet they still made so much of their lives.
We can learn so much from Australian history. Come find us.